We want to welcome everyone to our latest session of the engineering workshop. Today, we'll be going over professional ethics, displaying strong engineering ethics by evaluating and applying the merits, risk, and social concerns of activities in engineering. So without further ado, I want to turn the floor over to our instructor for the day, Mr. Chidi Izue. Chidi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rudy. Good evening, and tonight we'll be talking about professional ethics and how it affects our activities in engineering practice. What is ethics? Ethics are standards by which human actions are judged to be right or wrong. If we understand that, now let's look at professional ethics, which are principles that govern the behavior of persons in a business environment. So it's still our actions, how we act, be it right or wrong, but now in a professional setting. Professional ethics provides us with rules on how we should act towards other people and institutions in a business environment. So when we're relating with other sub-consultants, when we're relating with clients, when we're relating with our colleagues at work, or when we're relating with our employees and our employers, how are we acting in that professional setting? So it means that all those in that particular group within that business setting will use the same guideline, the same professional ethics, even though your values may be different, but these guidelines have been provided, and if you have to belong in that organization, if you have to belong in that profession, it's expected that you act like that so that the standard of the profession will be at a good rating. Now let's go specifically into engineering ethics, which are principles and guidelines engineers follow to ensure their actions are aligned with their moral obligations to the public, the clients, and the industry. As we know, we engineers are in the business of solving problems. We're in the business of designing facilities, structures that will benefit the public, many of them using the government funds or the society's funds. So as a result, if people are putting so much in our care, giving us so much to take care of or to come up with something that will benefit them, it's important that we exercise high level of ethics. Engineering makes a big impact on society and environment by solving social problems. We all know about the aging infrastructure. Is it food, housing, transportation, energy, communications, manufacturing, water supply, use of resources, down to the disposal of this waste? Engineering has hand in all of them. So because we impact the lives of people in all these activities, it is important that we exercise high ethical standards by way of honesty, fairness, dedication, protection of public health, safety, and welfare. So tonight, these are our objectives. These are the things that I would like us to achieve tonight, our goals. First, create awareness of professional and ethical responsibility of engineers in the society. Secondly, provide guidelines that will assist engineers in identifying ethical issues in their practice, because sometimes we may not know that it's unethical and we're doing it. So we'll discuss that tonight. Then we'll share past ethical issues that lead to failures or success, so that if we're able to understand previous circumstances, we might try to navigate around it so that we're successful. Our hope is that at the end of this seminar, that all of us will be able to display strong engineering ethics in our various practices moving forward. Universal ethical principle applies across all professions. In fact, that's the basis of a lot of the code of ethics. First, honesty. We have to be honest in our dealings. Trustworthiness. If your clients cannot trust you, or if your stakeholders cannot trust you, think about it. Then what are you doing for them? Trustworthiness is very important. Loyalty. We have to be loyal to our clients. We have to be loyal to the stakeholders while maintaining high ethical standards. We have to respect others, whether they are rich, whether they are poor, regardless of their status in the society. We have to respect them as long as they're human beings. We must not forget that we're guided by the law. So all our actions, our practice should be guided or should be performed within the confines of the law. Whatever we do, we'll make sure that we're doing good and avoiding harm to others. And at the end of the day, if somebody says, what did you do? We should be able to account. So accountability is also a hallmark of ethics. Code of conduct. Professional codes of conduct draw on these professional ethical principles that we just mentioned earlier on as the basis for prescribing required standards of behavior for members of a profession. And is this code of conduct that they expect that all their members within their society will be able to act or will be able to carry themselves within the confines of those codes of conduct. And if everybody's doing that, it's good. And what does codes of conduct do to the profession? Professional codes of conduct provide the following benefits. One, to the public, as they build confidence in profession's trustworthiness. If the public sees that your staff, that your engineers, that they are carrying themselves well, that they are trustworthy, they will build confidence in you. It makes your life easy. It means that when you do your research well, guided by ethics, you present it to them, they'll be like, oh, well, we trust this gentleman or we trust this lady, this engineer. They've done their due diligence. It makes it easier for you to sell your design. To the clients, it provides greater transparency and certainty about how the affairs will be handled. So when the client sees that you're following codes of conduct, they feel that you're being transparent with them, and it makes approvals easy. It makes contract awards easy. To the members of the profession, as they provide a supporting framework for resisting pressure to act inappropriately and for making acceptable decisions. When that code of conduct is there, and you let all the members of the association know that they have to abide by the code of conduct, it puts them under pressure to perform. It's basically, this is good. This is the good book. This is what you're supposed to follow. This has all our ethics. Why will you not follow it? So every time that they act, is expected that they check the codes of conduct to see if they are working or if they are operating within the confines of the codes of conduct. Codes of conduct also provide common understanding of acceptable practice, whereby it's uniform for all the staff, for all the engineers in the profession. So it's not like some people are doing something different. Everybody's doing the same thing. And if everybody's doing the same thing, all good. Likewise, if anyone is deviating, the codes of conduct also specify disciplinary procedures so that everybody knows these are the repercussions for not following the code of conduct. What is the importance of engineering ethics? It's important that as engineers that we adhere to ethical principles in order to protect the dignity, rights, and welfare of the community we serve. It's so important that every company should invest in ethical seminars to ensure that appropriate ethical standards are being shared and upheld within the organization. Ethical standards, good ethical standards will help the engineering practice to get more work, to gain wide acceptance, to be reputable, and to be in business for a long time. Because when a client is happy with you, trusts you, it will lead to repeat business. They'll keep coming back to you. In fact, they might not even be willing to try somebody else when they're already comfortable with you. So good engineering ethics is good business. What is it that people have done in the past that could be questionable within their ethics? What are things that could be considered as unethical? It's important that we address it here. You recall what I told us about our objective for tonight, so that engineers will know what is it that I could be doing that is unethical and going against the practice and the public that we serve. So the first one is a quality assurance engineer is deciding whether to ship products that might be defective. That person's job is to check it out. If it's good, I ship it out to consumers. If it's so, toss it. It's a loss to the business, but hey, we have a standard, we have a brand to maintain. If that quality assurance engineer looks at it and say, you know what, nah, I think we can win this one, the customers will not even notice it. That's not good. Somebody has confidence in us and we're guessing, oh, will they find out or not? So by doing that, that is no. So that's a bad ethical act. A structural inspector who's been hired to inspect reinforcing steel prior to slab pour observes that there won't be adequate concrete cover because the elevations at which they installed the reinforcing steel is too high. And we know in concrete, if there isn't enough concrete cover, the rebar could rust earlier. Concrete cover is to protect that rebar. So when you don't have enough, the thin concrete could fall apart. Water will get into the concrete and start rusting the rebar. When it starts rusting the rebar, it starts weakening the material that we purchased to improve the concrete in tension. The structural engineer should disapprove the work and tell them to redo it. But because of his familiarity with the subcontractor, he like, all right, you guys are all good. You can pour the concrete. That is bad ethical act. A bioengineering researcher discovers an error in protocol and feels pressured not to report it to her supervisor. I'm not going to bring this one up. That's okay. That's bad. A recently promoted manager at an industrial engineering company discovers that factory workers are asked to work more than 8 hours a day without getting paid overtime. That is modern day slavery. That is not good. It's unethical. You have to make sure that you have your employees produce well within the 8 hours. If they work beyond 8 hours, I think they should get compensated for working overtime, maybe to meet deadlines. Full transparency might prevent a project leader from closing a deal with a valuable client. Should he still clarify the situation to his client? If there's a conflict of interest somewhere, he should disclose it. You don't wait for the deal to go through and find out later on that, you know what, I'm so conflicted on this one, I shouldn't even have signed it, or I shouldn't even have been part of this project. And it becomes an embarrassing situation for everyone. You knew the right thing, but you chose not to do it. That's unethical. A project manager at a construction company struggles over whether he should disclose confidential information to a valued customer. If you think it's a problem, more than likely it is. If you're not sure, maybe you discuss it with your management and say, hey, what do I do here? But if you think it's unethical, more than likely it is. Environmental engineers face pressure to come up with data that favors their employers, and instead of sharing it, they leave it as it is because they know it's going to help the employer to gain business. That's unethical. A systems engineering company employee quits after getting pressured to falsify product testing paperwork. That's good that the engineer decides to quit because, they're like, I have to be honest, I have to be truthful, and my honesty should be on a higher scale than loyalty to the organization. So if the company wants him or her to falsify paperwork, they're like, I'm out. That's very good on the employee, but bad ethical standard for the employer. An engineering manager gets pressured to bribe a foreign official to secure a business venture overseas. No bribery. Bribery is simply unethical. Should a production engineer prioritize a big customer's desires over safety? You have this big customer that's one of the largest volume buyer for your products, and he or she is telling you to do something that you know is unethical, that is unsafe, so that he or she can maximize profit. That's unethical, and you should never engage in doing that. A female intern at a construction company faces disrespectful treatment because of her gender. Any form of harassment is unethical. A new hire at an electronics startup struggles to decide between telling the truth and maximizing the company's profits. Truth should always stand higher on the scale than company's profit. A cost estimator utilizing inside knowledge for his personal benefit or profit. You are the estimator for this company. You also have a side business and you're getting information from your primary company for personal benefit on another company. That's unethical. Now that we've highlighted a few items that are unethical that will affect our performance to our organizations and our performance to the public that we serve, let's now dig deep and make some emphasis on various areas of engineering ethics. During our practice as engineers, we will likely have to deal with engineering ethical dilemmas. But we have the responsibility to do what is best for the society. The services provided by engineers require honesty, impartiality, fairness, and equity, and must be dedicated to the protection of the public health, safety, and welfare. People have entrusted highways, bridges, factories, skyscrapers in the hands of engineers. We have to reciprocate by doing the right thing so that their lives, their safety will not be jeopardized. Engineers must perform under some standard of professional behavior that requires adherence to the highest principles of ethical conduct. Every engineering association or group has their code of ethics. This one here is Code of Ethics of the Engineering Profession, and I give credits to the National Society of Professional Engineers. This code of ethics is from them. It says engineers shall avoid the use of statements containing a material misrepresentation of fact or omitting a material fact. Engineers shall not falsify their qualifications or permit misrepresentation or their associates' qualifications. They shall not misrepresent or exaggerate their responsibility in or for the subject matter of prior assignments. Engineers shall not offer, give, solicit, or receive, either directly or indirectly, any contribution to influence the award of a contract by public authority, or which may be reasonably construed by the public as having the effect or intent of influencing award of a contract. Engineers shall not offer any gift or other valuable consideration in order to secure work. So basically, any form of bribery is no for engineers. Engineers shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public. That's the least we can do for people who have entrusted their welfare to our hands. If engineer's judgment is overruled under circumstances that endanger life or property, they should notify their employer or client and such other authority as may be appropriate. Engineers should approve only those engineering documents that are in conformity with applicable standards. Engineers shall not reveal facts, data, or information without the prior consent of the client or employer, except as authorized or required by law or this code. Engineers shall not permit the use of their name or associate in business ventures with any person or firm that they believe is engaged in fraudulent or dishonest enterprise. Engineers shall not aid or abet the unlawful practice of engineering by a person or firm. Engineers having knowledge of any alleged violation of this code shall report thereon to appropriate professional bodies and, when relevant, also to public authorities, and cooperate with the proper authorities in furnishing such information or assistance as may be required. Engineers are encouraged to participate in civic activities, career guidance for youths, and work for the advancement of the safety, health, and well-being of their community. Community should be important to engineers because we do a lot of work for them, and we also have to be part of the community to see how we can guide the youths. Who knows, they might become engineers too someday. Engineers shall not complete, sign, or seal plans and or specifications that are not in conformity with the applicable engineering standards. So we have to do our due diligence, do proper research in our design. If the client or employer insists on such unprofessional conduct, they shall notify the proper authorities and withdraw from further service of the project. Engineers are encouraged to extend public knowledge and appreciation of engineering and its achievements. Engineers are encouraged to adhere to the principles of sustainable development in order to protect the environment for future generations. Engineers shall continue their professional development through their careers and should keep current in their specialty fields by engaging in professional practice, participating in continuing education courses, reading in the technical literature, and attending professional meetings and seminars. Engineers shall not request, propose, or accept a commission on a contingent basis under circumstances in which their judgment may be compromised. As you can see in this code of ethics from the Society of Professional Engineers, they've addressed almost every action that they can imagine. So if we're able to act within the confines of these codes, we will be good. However, if there's anyone that was not mentioned in the code that you are not sure, you can always ask your supervisor or another engineer what he or she thinks and see how that relates to any of the items within the code of ethics. How will engineers abide by one or more applicable strict code of ethics and behavior, even in the face of opposition? The truth or the reality is that during their practice, engineers will likely have to deal with engineering ethical dilemmas. But they have a responsibility to do what is best for the society. The design has to be right. They have to be honest in whatever they're doing to make sure that their design and the products that will result from their design will benefit the client, that the client will get good value, full value for what they're paying for. There should be minimum standards. These code of ethics are minimum standards. You can always go higher than that. So I want us to understand that these are just minimum standards. At times, making immediate decisions becomes difficult when the moral reasons come into conflict. The moral reasons can be rights, duties, obligations, etc. But you always have to weigh all of them to know what is the most ethical, or rather, what is ethical in the face of all the conflicts. Common ethical considerations in our workplaces will include honesty and integrity, which is a fundamental aspect of ethics in business. Conflict of interest. You're here, but you also have a hand there. How does that conflict with your workplace, with your current employer? It's important that we do not engage in anything that will be in direct competition with your place of work. Harassment of any kind is unethical and should not be tolerated in any engineering workplace. Discrimination isn't good either, should not be tolerated in any engineering workplace. Theft and fraud, theft of design, or any deceptive act should not be tolerated in an engineering workplace. Privacy is important. That design or that intellectual property that your present company holds is important that you guard it well. Do not steal it or do not transfer it to somebody else for a fee. Keep all the information private to the company or to the engineering firm that you're representing who have that intellectual property. It's important that we remember at all times, especially in the midst of conflicting situations, that being truthful, being honest should weigh more than any loyalty to any entity. If your firm, the company you work for, wants you to lie, you said, no, I'm not going to do that. It's against my professional ethics. If they want to fire you, they can fire you. I'm sure you'll find work elsewhere. Always remember, honesty should weigh higher than any kind of loyalty. Within our work environment, we're going to encounter people who might be shaky within their professional ethics. Some people might be like, I'm not going to worry about that. Oh, I've done enough ethics. Just this one time. It's important that we be ready to encourage others to behave ethically. It's important to remind each other about the goals of ethics and compliance in the industry. You know, it must have taken our engineering people a lot of time, a committee to brainstorm, to come up with those code of ethics that addresses almost everything that could be unethical within our engineering practice. So, as such, it's important that we have to review them, understand them, and abide by them regardless of whatever the situation may be. We have to create responsible and sustainable designs to prevent and detect future violations of the law. You know what the law says. You have to design to make sure that your design is compliant with the law, the regulations, and corporate policies and procedure. If you're trying to shortcut it, it's unethical. We have to be able to tell our fellow colleagues who are shaking, who are wavering in their ethical standards, that being ethical is the right thing to do. Discuss the demerits of unethical behavior, which could lead to them getting fired or could lead to suspension of their engineering license. Tell them that their wrong actions today could impact their families and generations unborn tomorrow. If you're doing that poor design, or if you're trying to put out that design that you know that there are contents of that design that will not be good for the public, who knows? It could be your child or your grandchild that will be in the environment where this design or this product or this structure is being constructed. So it's important that we make decisions that are correct, right, ethical at all times. It's important for us to understand that code of ethics is just minimum standards, and that whatever we do in being ethical should go beyond what the law requires. Even if the law specifies something and it's kind of basic, minimal, there's nothing wrong if we look at it and say, hey, I owe it to the public that we serve. I owe it to my clients to do more than what this law requires. So it's important for us to understand that engineering ethics just guides us as engineers to adhere to the moral obligation of the profession and to the world, and that we can do better because our profession involves and impacts lives. It's expected that our level of training has exposed us to open barriers. We've opened and broadened our horizons, exposed us to good and bad scenarios. With that exposure, our minds have been prepared to always choose good under any circumstances. So even if the law gives you minimum, but you know that you can do better than that, please do better than that. Remember that ethics is standards of doing good and bad, and we should always choose to do good at all times. A lot of us work in companies for employers, and sometimes we don't put in all the time. If we are hired, we should put in the 40 hours a week to employers, because the productivity of the company and the sustainability of the company is dependent on our productivity. Is dependent on our individual productivities. If we produce well, then the company succeeds. If everybody within the organization is producing to their full capacity, wow, the company will be great. So it's important that we understand that. We have to use company time and property responsibly. Avoid unnecessary distractions. And those of us in full-time employment shall accept part-time engineering work only to the extent consistent with policies of the employer and in accordance with ethical considerations. You don't have to accept a part-time work and bring it to your full-time work and distract you from your primary assignment. Engineers shall not, without consent, use vehicle, equipment, supplies, or other facilities of an employer to carry on outside private practice. It's very important. Now, let's talk about performing work-related duties according to laws, regulations, contract provisions, and company policies. As we stated earlier, engineers shall not offer, give, solicit, or receive, either directly or indirectly, any contribution to influence the award of a contract by public authority, or which may be reasonably construed by the public as having the effect or intent of influencing the award of a contract. We must abide by the law all the time. Engineers shall not offer any gifts or other valuable consideration in order to secure work. They shall not pay a commission, percentage, or brokerage fee in order to secure work, except to a bona fide employee or bona fide established commercial or marketing agencies retained by them. That case, you know, okay, they are consultants, they are marketing company, they are going out there to help me to secure work. But besides that, don't give them money to go give somebody who has the influence to give you the contract. No, it's a no. And it's against the law. Engineers shall not attempt to injure maliciously or falsely, directly or indirectly, the professional reputation, prospects, practice, or employment of other engineers. Engineers who believe others are guilty of unethical or illegal practice shall present such information to the proper authority for action. We should not think that bringing our colleagues down or shaming our colleagues is a way to advance our profession or career. No. Even if you see your colleagues struggling, they're your professional colleagues in the same society of engineers. You can give them a helping hand. But don't deliberately try to bring them down. They're struggling and you make every effort to crush them completely just to advance your career. That is not good. Or even if they're doing okay, but you see them as a threat and you decide to maliciously or falsely come up with certain stories that might destroy their career, is unethical and should not be done. The need for confidentiality is important and should be respected, of course, when appropriate. Engineers shall treat with confidentiality any information obtained by them as to the business affairs and technical processes of a client or employer. If it's proprietary information for your company, please keep it proprietary. Keep it confidential. Don't disseminate it unnecessarily. If it's proprietary information for your client that you're doing business with, please guard it. Even after you stop doing business with the client or with the employer, that's not the reason for you now to say, okay, I can give up all their secret. No, their trade secret, their proprietary information, their intellectual property should be kept confidential. Now let's analyze a situation involving multiple conflicting professional and ethical interests to determine an appropriate course of action. Engineers shall not allow ourselves to be influenced in our professional duties by conflicting interests. Separate that conflict of interest. Focus on one thing. Focus on your primary assignment and make sure that you're not conflicted out. And when you suspect that you have conflict of interest, please speak up and tell them to reassign you to another project instead of you staying on one where you have conflict of interest. Even if the offer is too good, even if that kickback is too good, even if you need it, we cannot overemphasize that that conflict should not entice you to waver or to go back on your code of ethics. Engineers shall not accept financial or other considerations, including free engineering designs from material or equipment suppliers for specifying their product. As engineers, we have to be equal opportunity to all the manufacturers. Does that product that we want to specify in the specification, does it meet specs? If it meets specs, okay. If there are 3, 4 manufacturers whose products meet specs, list all of them. All those manufacturers are taxpayers. And they're also helping with employment. They have workers that work in the assembly line. So it's important that we be fair by specifying all of them and not accepting some financial gain from one manufacturer and then specifying them in all our projects. We should be mindful of that. Engineers shall not accept commissions or allowances directly or indirectly from contractors or other parties dealing with clients or employers of the engineer in connection with the work for which engineer is responsible. It's also important that engineers shall not attempt to obtain employment or advancement or professional engagements by untruthfully criticizing other engineers or by other improper or questionable methods. Engineers should be able to distinguish between legal or management issue and an ethical manner. As we know, legal issues have a set of rules on which they are based and are punishable by law if those rules are broken. Ethical issues, on the other hand, are not governed by a set of rules and thereby may not be punishable by law. Some of them may not be punishable by law. It depends on the extent to which the code of ethics is broken. But regardless, that reputation is important. Your personal reputation as an engineer, the reputation of the organization that you represent is also important. So we should always be able to distinguish between, okay, this is what the law says and this is what is right. The law could specify the minimum standard, but you know better. Over your course of training, going through college, your experience in the industry, you know what is ethical. You know to act with a high level of standard. That is what we're talking about here. The minimum should not satisfy you. Rather, you know the difference between good and bad. Always choose to do good in your practice. So we professionals, engineers, must weigh in on our morals and values to make the best judgment. An ethical business will act in a socially responsible way, doing what is right, even if it's not required for us to do so by the law, and regardless of the impact it might have on profits. Our good name, our reputation should always weigh and be more important to us than any form of silver or gold. Let's talk about assembling appropriate resources to assist in the resolution of an ethical dilemma. An ethical dilemma, as we know, occurs when there are 2 or more options, but neither of them are the best ethical or moral option. So we have to weigh. Spending inadequate time on a research and development of a project, that's unethical. Leading you to present incomplete designs at 100%. You know that the designs are not complete, but you put them out as 100%. That's going to create a headache for the end users of that design. There'll be so many RFIs. Could be so many change orders because your design was incomplete. So an award is made, construction starts, and there's so many questions. And you knew it, but you just had to rush it because you want to be that person that met the deadline. That's unethical. Sexual harassment is a no-no. Don't do that. And if you're harassed in your place of work and you cannot accept it or you cannot work under those conditions, you'll be in a dilemma. Should I keep this good job and continue facing this harassment, or what do I do? It's probably the best thing for you to leave. You will find work elsewhere. We cannot compromise data privacy. Intellectual property, trade secrets stays with who owns them and should not be shared with anybody else. No form of discrimination in our workplaces. Don't put somebody in a position whereby they understand or they question themselves. This treatment that I got today, is it because I didn't really perform where I needed to be, or is it just discrimination because of who I am? It's important that we don't put our employees in that type of ethical dilemma. Don't create an ethical dilemma that will make people ask themselves, should I stay or should I leave? Remember, each time an employee leaves an employer, somebody loses. Training is expensive, so you don't want to train your staff and then they're leaving for things like sexual harassment or discrimination. The company loses because that talent is now going elsewhere. It's important that we stay focused. Don't be distracted. Remember why we accepted the profession, because you know engineering is a noble profession. That's why we accepted it. To be noble comes with ethics. The respect that people give you as an engineer is because they expect certain ethical standards, certain level of ethics from us. So we cannot disappoint them. Ask yourself, is succumbing to ethical dilemma worth it? Would you jeopardize your profession for unethical acts? I think it's best that we continue to maintain high ethical standards in our profession. Now, when we're faced with ethical dilemma, how are we going to handle it? We're going to discuss a few steps on how we can handle that ethical dilemma. First step is analyze the merits and risk of the decision. Review the engineering decision you are faced while comparing the options. Consider all its merits and risks. For every option, what are the positives? What are the negative consequences? If we're designing and we have option 1, option 2, option 3, we have to consider what are the positives of this option? What are the negatives of this option? Make a list of those consequences. And at the end of the day, you'll be able to know, okay, what gives the best value to your client? Second step is analyze the actions. Display strong engineering ethics and consider things from a different perspective. Some behaviors are inherently good, while others are inherently bad. Bad actions are bad, no matter how much benefit comes from these bad actions. How well do your actions conform to moral values and ethical codes of ethics? Consider the possibility that one principle is more important than the others if there is contradiction between several of these principles. So essentially what we're saying here is being able to analyze all the actions, do the pros and cons, what is best under the circumstances. That will help you to be able to know how to make decisions. So you've itemized them in step 1. You're analyzing the positive and negative consequences, and you're using your strong engineering ethics to consider all these things all these options, the pros and cons from different perspectives. Now we're in step 3 to make a decision. Once we've analyzed the consequences of our engineering discussion and considered how well it adheres to the engineering standards, that is our ethics, now we can make a decision based on what we will consider being the most ethical standards. Always keep in mind that there are almost always unforeseen consequences of engineering decisions. There's some that you might not even think about. Many years down the road, you're like, oh, if only I remembered. But always brainstorm and have a lot of options so that you can analyze different consequences to be able to make the best decision. It's important that we understand that the golden rule states that one should treat others as one would wish to be treated. So don't wait to be appointed the ethics chairperson. It's your civic responsibility and professional responsibility to record and report to upper management in event an ethical matter isn't adequately resolved. If you see unethical things going on within your establishment, you have to speak up. Even if it's not directly affecting you, but you see that somebody is suffering that unethical behavior, you have to speak up. For the employers, for the engineering employers, it's important that you make sure you have a whistleblower protection in place so that people will not be afraid to come to you and tell you what they're observing. You will gain good information that will help you to run the company better if people know that you have an open door policy and they can share any concerns that they may have. And of course, make it clear to them that there will be no repercussion for speaking the truth. If you see something, say something. Let's discuss benefits of ethics program. We've been talking about them, about reputation, about how it helps us to get more work. In addition to that, companies' attention to ethics ensures high ethical policies and procedures in the workplace. If the company invests in high ethical procedures, your employees will like it. There'll be fairness and equal rights within the organization. Everybody is happy. They're being treated fair and they're given equal rights. If you have a good ethics program, you notice that it will support employee growth because they are comfortable. They won't be looking elsewhere. They want to grow with the company and they'll be with the company for a long time. And you have a lot of company people working for you because they love the place and they know that ethics is at an all-time high and they love it and they keep working with you to do good, to serve the clients that you all have. Ethics program cultivates strong teamwork and productivity. When your employees know that they will not be harassed, that they will not be discriminated against, they're free to work together in teams and together each achieves more. When people work in teams, it boosts productivity. Ethics programs are an insurance policy against an increasing number of lawsuits in regard to professional matters and to the effects of organizational service on stakeholders. If we have bad design, negligence, we'll get lawsuits. We will be sued. And that's why it's important that we carry professional liability insurance. It's far better and cheaper to incur the costs of mechanisms to ensure ethical practices in our various establishments now than to incur the cost of litigation later. If people rush the designs and don't do adequate research and development, and the design falls apart, what do you think is going to happen? They will sue us, and it's going to cost us more money if we lose the case. So why don't you invest money into high ethical standards for your company? By doing that, you're building a better company, a company that can serve the public, that can serve your clientele. So it's important that we invest in ethical program that will help us, position us in a place to be able to give our best services to the public that we serve. So now that we understand the benefits of ethics program, what can we do as a company? First, we have to develop, maintain, and evaluate regularly a written code of ethics. You've written it, everybody has a copy of it. Whenever somebody is hired during the orientation, you give them a copy of the code of ethics. But it's also important that you continue to develop and maintain it. You have to review it regularly, see what needs to be changed. If the society is changing, if the country is changing, it's expected that you have to update to make sure that your code of ethics is in compliance with what is required by law, or what is generally accepted by the standards of your profession. As a company, we have to provide regular ethics training to employees. It's not just during orientation of new hire, but from time to time, we have to provide them with refresher courses. It could be every 6 months, it could be every year, or however often you want to do that. But it's important that we provide ethics training to the employees. We have to set up and follow internal mechanisms for reporting violations so that people will be free to report violations without fear of repercussion. We have to promote and reinforce commitment to ethical business conduct. If our staff understands that, if the people that we do business understand that we are a company that maintains high ethical standards, they'll be willing to do business with us. And the more business we're doing, the higher the volume is increasing. Now that we've created awareness and ethical responsibility of engineers in the society, we shared examples of what engineers could be doing that will be unethical. And by doing those, it will lead to failure within the organization. It will lead to distrust among the clients that we serve. And then we went further to provide us with steps that will assist engineers in identifying and analyzing ethical issues, to know how to come up with the best decision. It's our hope that after creating the awareness, giving us an example of unethical conditions, and also giving us steps on how to analyze it and to be ethical, it's our hope that henceforth, that you engineers who are watching this presentation will resolve to display strong engineering ethics in your various practices. Remember, when engineering work is done on a project, the engineering firm or person doing engineering must be able to show that they have followed professional standards and ethics. If they're able to show that to the clients, to the public who have so much confidence and trust in them, they will continue to build trust and confidence in the customers and the society at large. And that's repeat business. So good ethics is good for the company and is good for the society. It enables the society to get best value. It's up to us to follow the codes of ethics of our various professional societies. It's up to us to use our ethics to understand that even the code of ethics and whatever law that could be associated, it's only a minimum standard. We have to do the best. We have to choose to do best under any circumstances. And together, we'll continue to make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Chitty, for another excellent presentation. And definitely what I take out of that is good ethics makes for good business. So once again, we want to thank you for joining us today, and you have a very productive rest of the day. Thanks again, Chitty.
Thank you.